When a grieving widow named Lydia Dawson, deemed too educated by her small-town neighbors, faces repeated rejection, she expects her teaching dreams to wither in loneliness. Suddenly, a mysterious rancher, Travis Whitmore, appears desperate for someone to tame his brilliant but unruly son. Accepting his offer flings Lydia into a world of sprawling Texas pastures and starlit nights where academic debates blur into personal confessions. Will she conquer the teenage prodigy's rebellious streak? Can her extensive degrees and unwavering patience unlock this boy's potential and heal his father's own unspoken sorrow? Tune in to see how Lydia's precarious position evolves into something far deeper, bridging heartbreak with second chances. Don't miss the story's final twists. And if you're moved by Lydia's resilience, subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing emotional, uplifting tales about people forging new paths in life, often where they least expect them. Lydia Dawson stood at the window of her cramped apartment, tapping the newest rejection letter against her palm as a cold drizzle painted ghostly rivulets down the glass. At 34, she carried not only the heavy cloak of widowhood, but also the weight of two advanced degrees, one in education, another in comparative literature. In Meadow Hills, Texas, a small town that had never embraced her big city ambitions, those credentials made her stick out like a lamppost in a hayfield. No matter how qualified she was, each school or tutoring agency sent the same polite message: your background is intimidating. We need someone with a simpler touch. 3 years had passed since the accident that claimed her husband Thomas. They had met in graduate school at Columbia University, forging a bright plan for a future of shared research, maybe eventually relocating to a more rural area for quieter living. Quieter was what they'd wanted, but not like this. After his death, Lydia found herself stranded in Thomas's old hometown, saddled with half-finished memories and the stares of neighbors who considered her too educated to really fit in. She tried to settle into a part-time teaching role at the local primary school, but families perceived her advanced degrees as overkill. A rumor circulated that her academic style would intimidate young children, turning them away from reading rather than inspiring them. As the dull light of the overcast afternoon dimmed further, Lydia exhaled and tossed the rejection letter onto her cluttered kitchen table. Bills had stacked up, forming an unruly tower that threatened to topple at any moment. She'd sold off many of Thomas's old textbooks to keep afloat, and the last of her savings melted away monthly in rent for this cramped apartment above a dry goods store. Each day, she juggled the practical demands of survival with her lingering grief still raw in unspoken corners of her heart. She felt the pang of lost potential, the academic life she'd once cherished gone and replaced by short-term tutoring, stints that ended the moment parents realized how overqualified she was. Her phone rang just then, the ancient landline she clung to because cell reception was spotty in the older part of town. It was Harper, her only real ally in Meadow Hills, and owner of the local diner. "Lydia, you there?" came Harper's warm, bustling voice. "Listen, I might have a lead for you. There's a man in the diner right now asking about a private tutor. Not just any tutor, someone who can handle advanced academics. Says his son is brilliant but impossible to keep in a normal school. Word is he's run off 4 tutors in the past year alone." Lydia's first instinct was caution. She'd heard of talented but troublesome kids before, ones that no conventional teacher could manage. But desperation whispered in her ear, "You can't be choosy now." "Who is he?" she asked, kneading the tension in her forehead with 2 fingers. Harper lowered her voice. "Name's Travis Whitmore. Owns Willow Bend Ranch about 20 miles out. Heard he's a widower, big cattle baron type, but modern enough to dabble in technology ventures. He rarely comes to town, so if he's here, it's got to be urgent. He asked about your background. Specifically wants someone with real credentials." Something fluttered in Lydia's chest, part anxiety, part hope. She thanked Harper and agreed to meet Whitmore within the hour at the diner. Stacking her final illusions of control into a neat mental pile, Lydia combed her hair, chose a navy blue blouse, her best attempt at looking professional, but not off-putting, embraced herself for whatever this chance encounter might hold. Little did she know that 20 miles away in a ranch house perched on a rise overlooking wide Texas fields, Travis Whitmore was pacing his polished hardwood floors, wondering if this rumored too-smart widow might be the salvation his brilliant 14-year-old son needed. The diner, a cozy one-room establishment with checkered curtains and laminate countertops, bustled with the dinner rush. Harper, her stout figure wrapped in a well-worn apron, waved Lydia toward the far corner booth. There she saw a man tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a crisp shirt with rolled-up sleeves and a rancher's hat resting on the seat beside him. He rose as she approached, extending a hand in greeting. "You must be Lydia Dawson," he said, voice low and steady, with just a hint of Western drawl. "I'm Travis Whitmore. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice." His gray eyes didn't dart away from hers. He gave her a frank, assessing look, as if trying to weigh her capabilities in one glance. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Whitmore." Lydia took his hand, noting the calluses of a man who still worked the land. He gestured for her to sit in. She slid into the booth, smoothing her blouse. The diner's clatter formed a background hum, plates clinking, forks scraping, and Harper's laughter as she served customers. "I hear you need a tutor," Lydia said, folding her hands on the table. Her heartbeat thrummed with the tension of potential new beginnings and the fear of yet another rejection. Travis nodded, exhaling. "My son, Zachary, is 14. Every test says he's brilliant. College-level reading, advanced in math, devours science journals. But he can't stand formal schooling. He's so bored he stirs up chaos just for excitement. 4 tutors have come and gone. Last month he locked one in the barn for half an hour. She quit by nightfall." Despite herself, Lydia almost chuckled. "Sounds challenging. And you believe I'm the right fit because—" "Might as well be direct," Travis said. "People in town claim you're more educated than the entire school board combined. My ranch hand overheard your friend Harper mention it. Zach needs someone who won't be intimidated by his intellect or thrown by his rebellious streak. Also, you're a widow." He paused, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, no offense, but I've lost someone too. My wife died years ago. Maybe that shared understanding of loss plus your credentials makes this arrangement feasible?" Lydia's chest tightened at the mention of her widowhood, but she appreciated his candor. "I see." She cleared her throat. "What exactly are you proposing?" Travis explained that Willow Bend Ranch had an extensive learning annex built by his late wife, an architect who believed education should be hands-on, integrated with everyday life. The tutor would live in a guest cabin, oversee Zachary's full-time education, manage a flexible schedule that included advanced topics and incorporate practical ranch knowledge. "I'm prepared to pay well," he said, naming a figure that made Lydia's breath catch. It was more than she'd earned at her last official teaching position. "Zach is my only child, and I can't afford to lose more time. If you're willing to try, you can meet him tomorrow." Lydia glanced at the letter still in her purse. The latest rejection, the rattle of the diner, the hush of Travis's unwavering gaze, and the curious glances from townsfolk in the background all crystallized her decision. "I'd like to meet Zachary," she said finally. "But let me be clear, I won't stay if this becomes unworkable. I need your full support in discipline and structure." A flicker of relief washed over Travis's features. "You'll have it. For once, I'm hoping your reputation for being too educated is exactly what Zach needs." He rose, dropping a few bills on the table for Harper. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Drive out to Willow Bend. I'll show you the place and we can see if this is a match." Lydia watched him depart, his stride purposeful, as if he carried not just the ranch's weight, but also the burden of a gifted, grieving teen. Harper bustled over, eyebrows raised. Well, Lydia inhaled, a swirl of apprehension and anticipation tangling in her chest. It might be the chance I've been waiting for. As she left the diner, she realized the drizzle had stopped, revealing a clear sky where the moon glowed in radiant silver. She had no illusions about the challenges ahead. Zach's rebellious nature, her own lingering grief, a ranch that might be a world away from her scholarly comfort zone. But for the first time in months, hope swelled. Maybe being too educated was about to open the most unexpected door of her life. The next morning, Lydia navigated the winding road leading to Willow Bend Ranch, each turn revealing sweeping Texas plains tinged with the gold of early fall. She passed through a wrought iron gate emblazoned with a stylized WB, traveling another mile before the ranch house came into view. A sprawling structure perched on a slight rise, it blended rustic charm with contemporary lines, the yard accented by carefully placed oak trees. In the distance, fences enclosed herds of grazing cattle, while a silver creek glinted under the morning sun. She parked near a cluster of vehicles, stepping out into the crisp air. Travis Whitmore waited on the porch, arms folded over a plaid button-down. "Morning," he said, descending the steps. "Glad you made it. Let me show you around before you meet Zach." He led her through the main house, a space that bore the influence of his late wife's architectural background. Sunlight spilled through large windows onto polished floors, and artwork lined the halls, some featuring southwestern motifs, others capturing glimpses of the ranch in impressionistic strokes. "My wife Harriet designed most of this," Travis explained quietly. hand-brushing a painting of a starlit ridge. She wanted our son raised in an environment that celebrated both tradition and innovation. They moved to a side wing that housed a modern learning annex. Lydia's eyes widened at the well-equipped classroom whiteboards, a small library, computers and lab tables. One corner boasted a piano and a violin stand. Another section revealed benches strewn with circuit boards and mechanical parts, presumably for Zach's tinkering. This was Harriet's dream, Travis said, voice catching slightly, to give Zach the tools to explore his interests. But without the right guide, it's just a fancy room. As if on cue, footsteps echoed. A boy of medium build, dark hair curling over his forehead, appeared from a side door. He wore a half smirk, half scowl, as though uncertain whether to be polite or defiant. "Zachary, meet Lydia Dawson," Travis said. "She's here to see if tutoring you is feasible." The boy's gray eyes, reminiscent of Travis's, flicked over Lydia with swift appraisal. She felt him measuring her the way one might test the edges of a newly sharpened blade. "Hey," he said, a single syllable. "Hello, Zachary." "You prefer Zach?" Lydia asked calmly. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter." Then with a slight tilt of his head, "I hear you have a couple of fancy degrees. Columbia, right?" Surprise flickered in Lydia's chest. "Yes, Master's in Education, PhD in Literature." "Might I ask how you knew that?" Dad said, so Zach's smirk gained a competitive edge. "Most teachers don't last a month with me. Something about not wanting to be locked in barns or dealing with pranks involving hidden bullfrogs." Travis cleared his throat, but Lydia managed a measured response. "Good to know I prefer open communication to pranks. So if you feel the need to lock me in a barn, perhaps we can talk first." Zach's eyes widened slightly as though not expecting such a direct reply. "We'll see." He glanced at the lab tables. "Dad, are we done? I've got a project to finish in a minute." Travis turned to Lydia. "Want to see your potential quarters?" She nodded, and they left Zach rummaging through a box of mechanical parts. Travis led her outside across a short lawn to a modest single-story cottage. Inside, Lydia found a cozy living room with a large window overlooking the creek, a small but fully equipped kitchen, and a bedroom with an adjoining bath. The decor was simpler than the main house, sparse furniture, pastel walls, but it carried the same blend of comfort and functionality. "Harriet built this as a guest cottage," Travis explained, setting a key on the table. "You'd have privacy, but it's within shouting distance if Zach needs you. We'll set your schedule so you can still have weekends off unless there's a special event or field trip we plan for him." Lydia moved to the window, glimpsing the water shimmering in late morning light. It felt peaceful, an unexpected sanctuary. "It's lovely," she murmured. Then she turned to meeting Travis's thoughtful gaze. "But is Zach truly okay with having a full-time tutor living on the property?" He didn't seem exactly thrilled. Travis let out a short laugh. "Zach's always skeptical. At first, he's been disappointed. People either condescend to him or label him trouble. He needs someone who can see behind that attitude to the potential beneath." Lydia exhaled slowly. "If I agree, I'll need a total support from you. When Zach tests boundaries, and he will, I can't have you undermining discipline or turning a blind eye." "You'll have it," Travis assured. "I'm done letting him slip through cracks. He's my only child, and Harriet would expect me to do whatever it takes." The mention of Harriet, the late wife whose presence was so deeply woven into this ranch, triggered an ache in Lydia. She recalled her own grief over Thomas. They were both widowed, both searching for ways to rebuild. Possibly that shared understanding could help them collaborate for Zach's sake. Possibly it could lead to something more. Though she dared not assume that now, they returned to the main house where Zach watched from the window, as if dissecting their every move. Lydia found her pulse steadying. She had no illusions. This would be easy. But perhaps the job's uniqueness, a bright teenager, a supportive father, a well-equipped environment, was precisely what her advanced education was meant for. "Mr. Whitmore," she said at the threshold, "I accept your offer. I'll move in tomorrow." Travis's shoulders relaxed visibly, relief radiating in the lines around his mouth. "Thank you, Ms. Dawson. I truly believe we can do some good here." Lydia nodded, sensing the undercurrent of sincerity. She turned, glimpsing Zach's silhouette in the window. She was stepping into a father-son dynamic, fraught with grief, intellect, and rebellious sparks. But for the first time since losing Thomas, she felt a fresh stir of hope. A brilliant but troubled teen, a father seeking help, a ranch far from the academic halls she once roamed. This might be her second chance at forging purpose, and maybe, just maybe, at reclaiming some measure of joy. Moving day arrived sooner than Lydia expected. She packed her meager belongings, textbooks, worn notebooks, brimming with lecture notes, a few treasured novels Thomas had annotated in the margins. She loaded them into a borrowed pickup from Harper, who gave her a tearful half hug, half laugh. "Don't forget to write, you big brain," Harper teased, voice cracking just enough to betray her emotion. Lydia squeezed her friend's hand in silent gratitude. An hour later, the dusty roads led her back to Willow Bend Ranch, now more than just a scenic property, her home at least for the coming months. Travis greeted her at the cottage door, offering to help carry boxes inside. Zach lingered in the background, arms folded as if observing some new experiment. "Can I see your books?" he asked abruptly, once Lydia had set up a couple of makeshift shelves. "Knock yourself out," she replied. "Just treat them gently. Some are first editions." He scanned the spine's eyebrows, lifting at a few titles: Quantum Mechanics for Beginners, Darwin's Voyage, the complete works of Dostoevsky. "You read everything, don't you?" "Reading is how I breathe," Lydia said with a small smile. "Curiosity is never wasted." By mid-afternoon, the cottage felt livable. Lydia perched on the small porch, sipping a glass of water as the late summer sun beat down. She watched Zach tinkering with a drone outside the learning annex. The boy was unsettled, she could tell, but also brilliant in a way that both impressed and worried her. Travis approached, leaning against the porch rail. "He told me he wants to show you something in the workshop after dinner." Travis said, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "Must be his new mechanical contraption. I suspect that's his version of a peace offering." "That's a positive sign," Lydia agreed. "He's testing me to see if I find it interesting or too complicated," Travis nodded. He used to do that with Harriet, always unveiling new gadgets, new theories, half expecting her to say, "That's too big for you." But she never did. A brief sadness flickered in his eyes. "Just as you never seemed to either." Lydia hesitated. "Thomas was the same with me. He'd bring me a new research idea and watch if I'd brush it off. I never did, though. Not out of pity or forced interest, but because I truly believed in him. So I get how Zach might feel." Their conversation settled into a comfortable hush. The ranch's evening routine soon enveloped them. Cattle needed rounding up and ranch hands bustled about with feed and equipment. Inside the main house, the aroma of roast chicken drifted from the kitchen. Mrs. Coleman, Travis's cook and house manager, invited Lydia to join them for dinner. A daily ritual she was slowly warming to. The meal was simpler than her first day: a hearty roast, mashed potatoes, corn from the ranch's own fields. But conversation was lively. Zach recounted a glitch in his drone's camera feed, and Lydia offered a few suggestions about troubleshooting cable interference. Travis recounted a dusty fiasco from earlier in the day, chasing a stray calf across a wide pasture. Laughter wove them together in a tapestry of shared experience. Lydia felt the phantom ache of remembering dinners with Thomas, but also a lightness that something new was forming here. After dinner, Zach led Lydia to the workshop. The space was a mechanical wonderland, half-assembled. Robot arm circuit, diagrams pinned to corkboards. Even a small 3D printer extruding some plastic gear. On a central table lay Zach's latest creation, a sensor-laden rover he claimed could navigate an obstacle course using AI routines. "I want your opinion," he said, a trace of uncertainty in his voice. "Think it's too advanced. The last tutor thought I was showing off." Lydia peered closely at the circuit boards, recognized certain microcontroller chips. "Too advanced. Hardly. You're harnessing machine vision software, right?" She pointed at a code snippet on the laptop. "You might refine the threshold detection there, though, or it could pick up false positives under bright sunlight." Zach blinked, a flicker of excitement crossing his face. "You actually get it. So maybe reduce the color sensitivity range." "Exactly. Then it'll rely on shape recognition more than color spectrum." The boy nodded vigorously, launching into a rapid explanation of how he planned to integrate ultrasonic sensors for added depth data. Lydia asked clarifying questions, mentally mapping the connections to his advanced math skills and the science concepts she'd soon incorporate. Over the next hour, they collaborated on refining the code. By the time they shut down the workshop, Zach was grinning ear to ear. No sarcasm, no sullen retorts, just the glow of a mind engaged. "This was fun," he admitted as they locked up. "I don't usually say that about teachers." "It was," Lydia replied, giving a gentle nod. "But remember, we also need to keep up with your writing assignments. We can't let your composition skills lag while you master robotics." He half groaned, half laughed. Yeah, balance. "I got it." The fleeting moment of warmth between them felt like a breakthrough in forging trust. She was no longer just another adult stepping into his domain. She was a partner in exploration, an intellectual ally. Back at the cottage that night, Lydia sank into the small armchair by the window, a contented weariness settling over her. In the glow of a reading lamp, she reflected on how seamlessly she'd slipped into this father-son world. The conversation with Travis, the workshop session with Zach, all felt so right. She set aside the book she intended to read. Instead, she gazed out at the starlit ranch, the same Texas sky that had once seemed so foreign to her. Now it whispered of second chances, urging her to keep stepping forward, deeper into a life she never anticipated, but was growing to love. A month passed at Willow Bend Ranch, and with each sunrise, Lydia Dawson discovered new facets of her role and her students. Student as plural, because she quickly realized she wasn't just teaching. Zach Travis often joined them in the learning annex to discuss certain topics from literature to economics, confiding that Harriet had once taught him to appreciate a broader worldview. Observing Lydia's interdisciplinary approach, where a discussion of a 19th century novel might segue into a conversation about historical labor practices, or a math lesson might incorporate real ranch budgeting, Travis found himself learning alongside his son Zach, meanwhile blossomed. Each day he tackled advanced problems in trigonometry or physics, then pivoted to reading assignments that Lydia carefully curated to stretch his empathy and emotional understanding. After finishing John Steinbeck's short stories, he wrote an essay that knocked Lydia's breath away, analyzing how despair, resilience, and moral dilemmas interplay in rural communities. This was the same boy who had weeks earlier claimed novels were just made-up stuff. Now he was exploring how fictional narratives reveal truths about human nature. Their schedule took shape: breakfast at 7:30, a half-hour discussion with Travis about the day's ranch priorities. Sometimes Lydia contributed insights, bridging lessons for Zach, then formal study blocks until lunchtime. Afternoons varied. They might conduct a biology experiment with creek water, read under a shady pecan tree, or examine local geology by examining limestone outcroppings near the ranch boundary. Twice a week, Zach joined in a robotics club in the nearest town, Crestfield, forging a small circle of peers who shared his passion for tinkering with technology. Though he rarely admitted it, Lydia could see how the social engagement brightened him, reducing his need to lash out or stir trouble. "I guess I'm not the only nerd around," he quipped one afternoon, a faint smile betraying a relief that he wasn't an outlier in everything. Lydia teased him that being a nerd is often just another way to say you love learning more than you love acceptance. "Sometimes you can have both," she'd add quietly, but not all was smooth progress. Zach tested boundaries, still occasionally resistant to tasks he deemed pointless. When Lydia introduced a structured writing project to refine his essays, he grumbled that it was too formulaic. One day he stormed out in frustration, complaining that she was stifling his creative spark. Lydia, recalling Travis's vow of support, calmly followed him to the porch. Waited until he cooled off, then restated the writing goals. Travis backed her up, telling his son that if a skill is worth having, it's worth practicing thoroughly. Zach eventually complied, though with dramatic eye rolls. Lydia refused to let these blow-ups undermine the relationship. They were fleeting storms in a changing climate. Even so, each conflict carried echoes of Harriet's absence, a vacuum that Lydia sensed but carefully avoided pressing. She never forced Zach to talk about his mother, though. When he offered anecdotes like Harriet's habit of doodling mechanical diagrams on napkins while sipping coffee, Lydia listened with earnest curiosity. Over time, Lydia noticed how Travis softened at these mentions, no longer shutting down at Harriet's name, but instead sharing stories of her creative genius, or how she once insisted they transform a broken-down barn into an art studio for Zach when he was a toddler. Harriet's presence felt less like a ghost and more like a guiding star, influencing them all from the intangible realm of memory. As for Lydia and Travis, their dynamic hovered in a delicate limbo. The professional lines were blurred by an undercurrent of personal connection. The easy rapport they developed discussing educational strategies over evening coffee or confiding small daily triumphs and frustrations hinted at deeper feelings. For all her cautious nature, Lydia sensed her heart leaning into trust again, inch by inch. Every glance Travis offered, every small gesture like bringing her a cup of herbal tea after a tough day with Zach or walking her back to the cottage, under starlight spoke volumes, and she reciprocated in small ways, offering to help with ranch finances or reading over a proposal for more sustainable irrigation, an idea Harriet had once championed. Still, both hesitated to name it out of respect for their losses and for Zach's emotional well-being. If they misstepped, the entire fragile structure could collapse. Lydia recognized a quiet tension between cherishing the present closeness and the fear that acknowledging it out loud might call forth new heartbreak. Perhaps it was enough for now to dwell in the unspoken warmth. After all, she'd come here as a too-educated widow, expecting little more than a paycheck, yet she'd found a calling, a surrogate family, and a hint of rediscovered joy in each new sunrise. The crispness of autumn drifted into the soft chill of early winter. On a late November afternoon, Lydia was in the annex library organizing new astronomy texts that had arrived courtesy of Travis's efforts to fuel Zach's expanding curiosity. The hush of the room was broken by frantic footsteps. Zach burst in, face pale, eyes wide. "You gotta come, Dad's in trouble," he blurted, voice shaking. Lydia's heart seized. Without further explanation, Zach grabbed her hand and tugged her into a near run down the corridor. Her mind spiraled with worst-case scenarios. A ranch accident, a sudden health crisis, or something else. They emerged into the yard where a ranch hand was rushing toward them, calling for help. She spotted Travis by a corral, gripping the fence with one hand while stooping over, his face contorted in pain. "Stampede," someone gasped, pointing at the dust-churned horizon. A group of spooked cattle thundered across a far pasture, a startled ranch worker, clinging to a horse that threatened to bolt. Travis's own horse had thrown him, it seemed, and he landed hard on his side. "Get him inside," Lydia ordered, calmer than she felt. "Zach, help me support him." Travis inhaled raggedly, wincing as they half-lifted, half-dragged him toward the porch. "I'm fine," he tried to protest, but the sweat beading his brow betrayed the lie. He had at least bruised ribs, possibly worse. Lydia directed ranch hands to handle the stampede. She and Zach maneuvered Travis into the living room, easing him onto a couch. "Don't move," she cautioned, checking him for fractures. "Where does it hurt most?" He grimaced, pressing a hand to his left rib cage. Felt something crack. Hard to breathe. Lydia's pulse hammered. She had some first aid training, but was no doctor. "Zach, call for medical help," she said, looking the boy in the eye. "We need a professional to check for broken ribs or internal injuries." Zach's face reflected terror, but he obeyed, sprinting to the phone. Lydia, meanwhile, removed Travis's dusty jacket and carefully felt along the rib area. He hissed in pain. "We'll stabilize you until help arrives," she murmured, rummaging for a pillow to support his torso in a more upright position. "Breathe shallowly, slowly." Minutes felt like hours. Lydia, kneeling beside the couch, her hand clasped around his for comfort, willed him to stay conscious. She noted each ragged exhale, each flicker of anguish in his eyes. Zach hovered, phone clenched in his shaking hands. The paramedics would take a half hour to get here from the next town. "Dad, I'm sorry," he whispered, voice trembling. "I shouldn't have pressured you to handle that fractious horse alone." Travis managed a tight half-smile, forcing words. "Not your fault, kid. Just ranch life happens." Lydia placed a cool cloth over Travis's forehead, the hush in the room thick with tension. Over the next half hour, ranch hands managed to corral the stampeding cattle. The paramedics arrived, confirming Travis had at least 2 cracked ribs, but no immediate sign of collapsed lung. They recommended a hospital trip for x-rays. Travis fought them at first. "I've got ranch duties," he insisted. But Lydia's stern glare shut that down. "Your life is more important," she said, voice edged with worry. "Let the ranch hands handle it. Let me and Zach handle it. You get better." And so, with Lydia's scolding overshadowing his protest, Travis relented. The ambulance rumbled away, leaving behind a swirl of dust and anxiety. Zach stood beside her, shoulders slumped, as if he bore the ranch's entire burden. "He'll be okay," Lydia assured, placing a hand on the boy's arm. "Cracked ribs hurt, but they heal." He nodded, eyes wet. "You'll stay right with me until Dad's back." "Sometimes I get worried," Lydia's heart twinged at the boy's vulnerability. "Of course I'm not leaving. Let's sort out everything that needs doing. We've got phone calls to make, chores to cover. We can handle it." Over the next 2 days, they indeed handled it. Lydia juggled phone calls with the foreman to track cattle health, coordinated staff schedules, and even helped Zach finish a stock inventory that Travis was mid-typing in the office. Each evening, she'd cook simple meals in the main house so Zach wouldn't be alone. At night, she retreated to the cottage, exhaustion, fueling a dreamless sleep. The hospital confirmed Travis's ribs were fractured but stable. He'd need bed rest and limited movement for a few weeks. Not exactly a rancher's ideal recovery plan. When Travis finally returned home, bandaged and grumpy, Lydia and Zach greeted him like a conquering hero. "We managed, but never again," Lydia teased, handing him a cane. No more thrown horse stunts. The weariness shadowing Travis's eyes lifted slightly at her gentle humor. I promise you two did great. Thank you. The ordeal, terrifying though it was, solidified their bond. Zach witnessed Lydia stepping into the caretaker role, not just academically, but practically. Travis realized how deeply he trusted Lydia with the ranch and with his own vulnerability. And Lydia discovered that far from being an outsider, she was now integral to Willow Bend's tapestry. The near miss had proven how fragile life could be, yet also how fiercely they'd fight to preserve what they'd built together. Winter's chill arrived soon after Travis's return, dusting the rolling meadows with a light frost come dawn. The mornings grew brisk, and Lydia found herself layering sweaters over her usual teaching attire. Zach was thrilled. His mind thrived on novelty, and the subtle shift of seasons gave him fresh angles for science experiments and data collection. I want to measure temperature fluctuations in different ranch microclimates, he announced over breakfast one day while Travis carefully balanced a mug of coffee in his still sore left hand. Maybe see how it affects cattle feed consumption or how water in troughs can freeze at varying rates. That's your next project then, Lydia replied, smiling. We can incorporate it into our environmental science module. Just be mindful of the broken lamp fiasco last time you set up sensors around unsuspecting animals. Zach rolled his eyes but grinned, obviously recalling how a curious heifer had nudged his sensor-laden tripod, toppling it and shattering a barn lamp. Now older and hopefully wiser, he planned to anchor equipment more securely. Meanwhile, the story of Travis's fall and Lydia's role in managing the ranch alongside Zach circulated among the ranch hands. Whispers were that Mrs. Dawson was no mere teacher, but a pillar holding the place together. Mrs. Coleman, the ranch's longtime cook, confided to Lydia while kneading dough, "We ain't had this much harmony since Harriet was alive." The words struck Lydia deeply, reinforcing the sense that Harriet's memory wasn't an obstacle, but a legacy they were all upholding. Every day, Lydia toggled between tutoring Zach in advanced calculus, analyzing essays on Shakespeare, or analyzing scientific articles and checking on Travis to ensure he didn't overdo chores while healing. Because Travis was forced to slow down, he spent more time in the learning annex, listening to or even joining their lessons. Gradually, a casual tradition emerged each afternoon. They convened at 4 o'clock for interdisciplinary talk, a half-hour session that might range from discussing a novel's themes to the ranch's business strategy. Sometimes Travis would bring up the challenges in marketing their cattle as sustainable beef, and Lydia would nudge Zach to tie in an economics principle or environmental argument. Often these conversations spilled past the half-hour mark, becoming wide-ranging dialogues that felt like a small family symposium. In these dialogues, glimpses of deeper emotion flickered. Lydia witnessed Zach's eyes gleaming with pride whenever Travis praised his insights. She noticed Travis leaning in whenever Lydia linked a concept from classical literature to modern ranching dilemmas. She felt her own heart lurch each time. Travis's gaze caught hers, full of unspoken gratitude. And always, Harriet's presence hovered, a memory, simultaneously cherished and respected. Lydia never felt overshadowed by Harriet's legacy. On the contrary, Harriet's designs for the annex, her dream of integrated education, felt like an invisible partnership bridging past and present. The closeness between Lydia and Travis grew more tangible. He knocked on her cottage door some evenings with cocoa in hand, asking about her day, or seeking her help with ranch budgeting. She found excuses to linger, helping him shuffle spreadsheets or discussing a new approach to rotational grazing. Their collaboration was fluid, each conversation dipping seamlessly from professional to personal. And if occasionally their hands brushed over a shared keyboard or the conversation ended with a moment of hushed warmth, neither apologized. They were old enough to respect the delicate nature of such a bond, wounded widow or an academically intimidating widow, and yet wise enough to let it take shape organically, Zach observed with watchful acceptance. No more pranks to sabotage Lydia's presence. Instead, he confided in her. "I'm glad Dad's not alone all the time. He used to walk around with that quiet ache." Now the hush in the ranch house was replaced with the hum of conversation, the clink of dinner plates set for three in the undercurrent of unresolved possibilities shining through every shared meal. But life rarely grants a smooth path. As December approached, a swirl of news threatened to upend the newly formed equilibrium. A large ranch conglomerate known for questionable business practices took interest in expanding into Willow Bend's territory. Rumors circulated that unscrupulous attorneys might exploit Travis's temporary vulnerability, pushing for a hostile takeover. Travis downplayed these threats, but Lydia sensed the tension rippling beneath his calm facade. She recognized the hush in his voice, the flicker of worry in his eyes whenever he pored over ranch ledgers late into the night. "We'll handle it," he told her one evening, trying to reassure my father. "Started this ranch. Harriet improved it. I won't let some corporate suits buy it out from under me." She nodded, determined to help in any way she could, even if that meant stepping beyond her teaching role into something approaching partnership. The ranch, after all, had become more than a workplace. It was a place where a gifted teenager found intellectual sanctuary, where a grieving father wrestled with both heartbreak and hope, and where a once-lost widow discovered she might have a future after all. The last weeks of the year brought swirling Texas winds and the approach of holiday festivities. At Willow Bend Ranch, preparations for Christmas melded Harriet's old traditions with Lydia's newcomer perspective. A large evergreen was carted in from the ranch's north boundary, set up in the living room, and decked out in ornaments that blended southwestern flair. Tiny cowbells and cacti motifs with cherished keepsakes from Harriet's family. And now a few decorations. Lydia added, each telling a story from her past. In quieter moments, Lydia's eyes caught the reflective glint of Thomas's old silver keepsake ornament that she'd placed near Harriet's embroidered star. Two lost spouses, two living hearts forging a new shape of family. Zach exuded excitement, eager to take a break from formal lessons. Still, Lydia integrated holiday research projects such as investigating the historical origins of certain Christmas traditions or analyzing the economics of local ranch-based gift shops. Travis teased them that only Lydia could turn Christmas into a cross-disciplinary study, but he indulged every question or suggestion with a fond glimmer in his eye. The more glimpses Lydia saw of his paternal warmth, the deeper her appreciation grew. Meanwhile, the overshadowing threat of a corporate buyout loomed. Travis spent hours on the phone with attorneys verifying land deeds, ensuring no legal loopholes allowed an outsider's claim. Lydia pitched in, scanning documents and summarizing them, her advanced reading and writing skills coming in handy. More than once, Travis took her aside, voice hushed with uncharacteristic vulnerability. "I'm so close to finalizing a major deal that'll secure the ranch's finances for good, but if something goes sideways, I can't lose Harriet's dream, and I can't let Zach down." Lydia offered what reassurance she could, scanning each contract for hidden clauses. At night, the stress etched lines on Travis's forehead, and Lydia, uncertain how to banish his anxiety, simply reminded him that together they'd grown strong enough to face even these storms. A few days before Christmas, a critical document needed hand-delivering to an out-of-town law office. Travis, still occasionally wincing from his rib injury, insisted on driving himself. Lydia insisted on accompanying him, half anxious about letting him strain. They turned the mundane trip into a mini excursion, stopping at a roadside cafe for a quick lunch. Over sandwiches, they found themselves discussing not the ranch or Zach's progress, but more personal topics like favorite childhood memories or the funniest argument they'd ever had with their late spouses. Laughter and bittersweet tears mingled, each unveiling more layers. At the law office, the attorneys confirmed Travis's land titles were solid and the deal could proceed. Relaxation smoothed some of the tension from his posture as they headed back. "You're a good luck charm," he joked, but Lydia recognized the sincerity behind his grin. On the drive home, the conversation drifted to the future. "Zach's talked about trying college-level classes next fall," Travis mused. "He might be ready by then if we find a balanced approach, but that means you might not need to stay full-time as a tutor." He paused, letting the words linger. "I'd still want you around, of course, if you'd like to remain. Maybe move from tutor to partner in shaping the ranch's educational outreach. We could do more for local kids or something bigger." Harriet had a dream of turning the annex into a small community school. Eventually, the proposition took Lydia aback. Not the immediate suggestion of marriage, but an invitation to co-create a new educational vision for the ranch, bridging farmland practicalities with academic excellence. She felt a tug of excitement, a sense that her entire academic career might find a more holistic purpose here. "I'd like that," she murmured, a small smile forming. "We can explore it. It comes spring." When they arrived at Willow Bend that late afternoon, the sky was a wash of orange and purple. Zach was waiting outside, waving cheeks flushed with cold. "Dad, Mrs. Dawson, come see," he called, darting inside. They followed him to the living room, where the large Christmas tree glowed with newly added lights. In their absence, Zach had arranged small gifts from the ranch hands, each labeled with tokens of gratitude. A crocheted scarf from Mrs. Coleman, a carved wooden figurine from the head stableman, an embroidered handkerchief from the stable girl, learning to read with Lydia's help. The ranch staff, it seemed, had come to see Lydia as family, not just an outsider. Over hot cocoa, the three of them admired the tree, the ornaments reflecting little pinpoints of color. Harriet's star perched at the apex, shining softly near Lydia's silver ornament. From Thomas, the closeness in the room felt tangible, a hush that wasn't emptiness, but calm unity. Lydia touched Travis's arm. "Thank you for letting me be part of this," she whispered. He covered her hand with his own. "You belong here, Lydia," he said, voice thick with feeling. "You've made this place whole again." And though the threat of corporate encroachment still loomed and the question of next year's plan for Zach remained, for this night, they embraced the joy of a soon-to-be real family Christmas. The first in years that each of them approached not with sorrow, but anticipation. Christmas Eve dawned bright and cold, the ranch fields glittering under a thin layer of frost. By midday, the household bustled with festive preparations. Mrs. Coleman orchestrating the kitchen, like a five-star General Ranch hand stringing lights around the porch. Zach and Lydia finalizing a short holiday program of readings to share by the fireside. Travis, wearing a sweater Harriet had once picked out for him, carried logs in for the big stone fireplace, ignoring Lydia's admonitions not to strain his healing ribs. He insisted, "It's Christmas, I'll be fine." By late afternoon, neighbors and a few extended family members trickled in. Lydia found herself greeting guests with a confidence that surprised her. Where once she'd have felt uneasy, too educated, too formal, she now wore her learning lightly secure in her role as caretaker of Zach's academic journey and collaborator in Travis's vision. Everyone had heard how well Zach was doing. Some teased Travis about finally bagging the best teacher in Texas, which brought faint color to Lydia's cheeks, but she couldn't hide a quiet happiness in each nod or warm handshake. Evening settled, the ranch house glowed with soft lamplight. A simple ceremony began near the grand fireplace, the mantel draped with greenery, and Harriet's embroidered stockings. They read short passages. Zach offered a piece of Dickens. Lydia chose a poem by Frost. Travis read a rancher's prayer. Harriet had once penned. The hush in the room resonated with the memory of absent loved ones, Harriet Thomas, while also celebrating the new bonds forming here. When Zach finished his reading, he set down the book, eyes shining in the reflection of the flickering fire. Applause rippled among the guests, some dabbing at tears. Soon after, the neighbors and extended kin departed for their own gatherings, leaving the core group. Travis, Lydia, Zach, and the ranch staff for a quieter after celebration. They gathered around the living room, snacking on Harriet's famous fruitcake recipe Mrs. Coleman had revived. Zach, tipsy on holiday spirit rather than anything stronger, proposed a final tradition, exchanging small gifts. Travis unwrapped a new leather-bound ranch ledger Lydia had found monogrammed with WBB on the front. He chuckled, leaning over to murmur a heartfelt thank you that lingered between them. Lydia opened a slender box from Zach, discovering a small, key-coded puzzle box he'd engineered. "Inside is a note," Zach explained, "but you have to solve the encryption to read it." She laughed, promising to tackle it soon. Then came Travis's gift to Lydia. Not the ring from Harriet's line, but a gracefully designed necklace with a silver pendant shaped like a tiny stylized star, one of Harriet's early pieces, Travis explained softly. "She once sketched jewelry designs as a hobby. I had this made from her template. Thought you might appreciate wearing something that blends into your style but carries her memory forward." Lydia's throat tightened at the significance. This was acceptance and partnership, and an emblem of unity between past and present. She let him place it around her neck, the metal cool against her skin. A hush fell, the only sound was the crackle of fire. Zach, surprisingly solemn, said, "Dad, there's something you want to say, right?" His gaze flicked meaningfully between them. Travis, clearing his throat, angled toward Lydia. Their eyes met and she gave a small nod. In front of Zach, in front of the staff, Travis gently took Lydia's hands. "We already talked about so much, but I'd like to make it official," he said, voice steady. "I love you, Lydia Dawson. I can't imagine life here without you. Not just for Zach, but for me. Will you stay as more than just a tutor? Will you be part of our family?" The ring Harriet never used, a gemstone ring from Travis's grandmother, appeared in his other hand. A hush of anticipation washed through the room. Lydia inhaled, heart hammering, but no doubt shadowed her mind. She glanced at Zach, who nodded, brimming with encouragement. She saw Harriet's star still perched on the tree, a testament to bridging old memories with new ones. And she felt keenly Thomas's spirit, not overshadowed or replaced, but woven into the tapestry of her renewed life. "Yes," she whispered, tears forming. "Yes, I will." Applause, and a few joyful cheers erupted from the staff. Zach whooped, crossing the room in a flurry of teen exuberance to hug them both. The ring slid onto Lydia's finger, a perfect fit. She thought of all the rejections, all the nights she'd wept in her lonely apartment. She thought of Harriet's architectural vision left half-finished, yet carrying on in these walls. And she thought of the bright mind of a 14-year-old boy, once impossible, now blossoming under guidance, that valued not just knowledge but understanding. In that moment, as stars emerged beyond the ranch windows, Lydia realized the final piece of the puzzle, being too educated, was never a curse. It was a gift waiting for the right people to cherish it. Here in the warmth of Willowbend Ranch, with Travis's arms around her and Zach's grin lighting up the holiday night, she found the acceptance, love, and sense of belonging that validated every step of her winding, grief-laden path. Tomorrow, the details would continue ranch life, demanding chores, advanced lessons for Zach, new expansions to Harriet's legacy, the tasks of a wedding to plan. But for this Christmas Eve, they cradled contentment, forging a family from the ashes of sorrow. In the hush of that final moment, Lydia felt the presence of their lost loved ones, Harriet and Thomas, shining blessings upon them as gently as the star pinned to the top of the tree. Looking back on Lydia, Travis, and Zach's journey, it's remarkable how a wrong fit in one place becomes the perfect key in another. Lydia's extensive education. Once a roadblock proved the catalyst for a ranch in need of new perspectives. Travis's sorrow shielded him until he found someone capable of walking alongside it, and Zach's brilliance, initially a wedge that drove others away, transformed into a beacon of growth, once nurtured by genuine collaboration. As they melded their past with present hopes, each discovered that life can bloom again, where loss once overshadowed everything. From my viewpoint, their story is a testament to courage. How stepping beyond rejection can forge connections we never saw coming. Sometimes the very trait that isolates us is what a different community cherishes. What part moved you most? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Whether you relate to Lydia's quiet tenacity or Zach's hunger for knowledge, every view enriches the tapestry of lessons these stories offer.